Pathmonk is the AI for website conversions. With increasing online competition, over 98% of website visitors don't convert. The ability to successfully show your value proposition and support visitors in their buying journey separates you from the competition online. Pathmonk qualifies and converts leads on your website by figuring out where they are in the buying journey and influencing them in key decision moments with relevant micro experiences like case studies, intro videos, and much more. Stay relevant to your visitors and increase conversions by 50% by adding Pathmark to your website in seconds, letting the AI do all the work and increase conversions while you keep doing marketing as usual. Check us out on pathmark.com. Hey everybody, welcome back to Pathmark Presents. Today we are joined by Oleg. He's the marketing manager at the electric car scheme. Oleg, welcome to the show.
Hi, Rick. Thanks for the invitation.
Of course, glad to have you here. Maybe Oleg, maybe we start with the basics. Okay, what's the big idea behind the electric car scheme? And again, if you were to explain it to a friend, how would you describe what you do?
Well, the electric car scheme is based around EV salary sacrifice. So the idea is that a company can sign up and then their employees will be able to benefit from essentially getting cheaper cars since they pay for their cars using their net income. This results in 20 to 50% employee savings. The company can also save a bit of money whilst providing transport to their employees. And of course, the environment also benefits from more people driving electric for cheaper prices.
That's amazing. Now, this sounds like there's two components, right? Two main people that would benefit from this, the employee and the companies, right? So, could you expand a little bit on what kind of, what type of companies you tend to work with the most, and maybe at the employee level, who's signing up to these to this initiative, let's say, and what are they looking for, really?
Yeah, so essentially on the company level, we can service virtually any single company that does PAYE. So that is SMEs as well as sort of large enterprises. On the employee side, honestly, we do not actually have like a lower limit. As long as the employee doesn't go below minimum wage, we find that,
Mm.
yes, people on higher salaries do tend to prefer salary sacrifice because, they already have the money uh, for the actual car lease. However, even on lower salaries, people might still need transport. And actually, our savings of 20 to 50% allow people to drive electric a lot more affordably. And of course, once they have the car, it's an all-inclusive package, so they don't need to worry about servicing. They don't need to worry about tires or MOT, and insurance can even be actually bundled into the scheme if the employee chooses to do that. So we do have a wide range of people that we can support. And indeed, we find that increasingly people on, more modest incomes also tend to like the scheme you know, for savings over, say, having to run their own petrol car, for example.
Well, listen, 20 to 50%, it's compelling, right? And that, for anyone, really, even if you're filthy rich, you will love a 20 to 50% saving rate. So I can see the appeal of that. Now, how do these people discover you? As in, how do these companies get in touch or understand more about the scheme? And in a more technical sense, were there any marketing channels that have become your go-to for bringing in more of them at the moment?
Yeah, so we do outreach in various ways. So we have a BD team, an SDR team. We have a great partnerships team. And of course, there's the marketing team, which I'm a part of. So for that, yes, we do run ads, but also organic is probably one of the bigger channels at the moment. So that's my focus. Well, SEO is what I do. So yeah, organic is quite big. We can also do lead gen emails. So that's another sort of way of reaching out to people. But I'd say that probably between ads, organic, and email, those are the three biggest channels for actual like top of the funnel.
Okay. And I would assume these people then are brought to your website, if maybe a landing page, of course, depending on their campaign. But to that, I'd love to understand if you could share with us how much of a role does your website play in pulling in more business, and if you will, are there any parts of it that you think are working great at the moment, and are there any parts that you think maybe you have your eye on improving?
Yeah, so In terms of what works great, I mean, I'm going to be a little bit biased here. So coming at it from the SEO perspective, we have probably one of the most aggressive content production sort of schedules in the industry at the moment when you compare it to other sort of salary sacrifice blogs out there. So our blog right now is probably the largest in the salary sacrifice industry right now. We publish around 10 pieces a week. So that's either new content or optimization. And actually, in terms of reach, we find that depending on what's happening outside of the direct industry, say around like fiscal events or new car releases, or just cars that people are really excited about, we can pull in a disproportionate amount of traffic. Now, to that end, one of the bigger issues is how do you then convert it? Because unlike a proper B2C type setup, the electric car scheme is B2B2C. So the company still has to sign up to the scheme, right? So this is where we find that the actual challenge is, generating new traffic is easy. I think we pull around sort of 2,000 to 2,500 clicks every single day. Obviously, many more impressions, but that's to be expected in the current climate. But yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, I can relate to, generating traffic is easy. In fact, one of the mottos, the motto we live by at Pathmark is to stop chasing traffic and to start converting it. And because that's what we have observed over time, that people, leaders like yourself, they're really good at generating traffic, and then we need to understand more about the conversion side of things, because of course that affects the revenue, it affects the bottom line, let's say, of a company, right? But from your experience, what actually makes a website convert? Like you get people to the website. Are there any tools, let's say, or tactics or frameworks even that have worked wonders for you when it comes to conversion?
Yeah, I think the key thing is that you need to make it easy. So make the conversion process easy, but also just make it less hostile. So for example, like businesses such as ours will use something like like a book a demo form. That has to work, and that has to be a relatively, short process for the end user. You can't be expecting somebody to say, I don't know, if it's true B2C, say, put in their credit card details before they've even committed to actually seeing the product. So minimizing steps between somebody coming onto the website and actually, becoming, say, a marketing qualified lead. The more straightforward you make it, sort of, the more conversions you can expect. Now, on the flip side, some might argue that, simplifying it too much, not gating things enough, that can lead to low quality leads. But then, of course, you can screen them after the fact, once they've committed to actually signing up. So it does depend on the business and sort of individual, I guess, funnels. Like in our case, yes, the blog is one of the biggest drivers for getting organic traffic, but also each blog page has, floating CTAs. So by the side of each blog, you'll have a sort of like a floating box with sort of multiple CTAs telling you all about the scheme. And then, of course, you have a book a demo button at the bottom. And then we have sort of floating buttons at the bottom of each page, to allow people to book a demo or to, find out more. So by doing that, we try and make it as simple as possible for people to get the information that they need, without having to sort of bounce across, many pages, not find the answer, and then potentially go to a competitor. Yeah. At least once we've secured the phone call, then, the rest becomes a little bit more straightforward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the focus on simplicity here. And I did a little bit of digging, Oleg, and I understand you have a background in UX design. Am I correct?
I do, yes. I tried to break into it sort of early on in my marketing career, but yeah, it's a hard one to get
Yeah.
into. Yeah, I mean, I studied architecture at uni, so I'm kind of a designer by training anyway.
Got it. I understand that. I can hear it by the way you talk about, the let's say in a way the user journey and the making it easier for the end user, right? I think that's an essential mentality to have. for marketers, for anyone really working in digital space. But I love that you're focusing on the simple steps that you can take to make people convert, and that's uh, that by itself is a fundamental. And I think if anyone just thought that way, we will probably have way more converting websites. But let's not digress. I just want to switch gears for a second, Oleg. Maybe talk about you as a leader to stay on that. What does a typical workday look like for you as a marketing manager? What are the main things you focus on a day to day? What's a day in the life of Oleg look like?
Eh, wake up, open SEMrush. Standard. Yeah, yeah. So one of my biggest focuses is, yeah, still content production. Uh, so yeah, we have quite an aggressive sort of content schedule, and we try and produce as much sort of new and valuable stuff as we possibly can. Realistically for us, that looks like around sort of 10 pieces a week. So yeah, I mean, I do spend a disproportionate amount of time on that. As a result, we have a sort of content repertoire of around 400 to 500 pieces. That just counts all the sort of blog content that we have. Ultimately, the idea behind that is to capture as much share of voice as we can, and to appear in as many search queries, to grow our domain rating. So yeah, I'd say, I mean, around half of my time is spent on that. Obviously, that is split between, yeah, it just depends on sort of the individual aspects of the week. Some days I may have to do some work around the website, optimize landing pages. That is also quite a big component of, what I have to do day to day. And then, of course, there's the collaborative aspect. So I do also have a content writer, I write briefs for her. I also have a technical consultant. So I collaborate with him. Mostly, our focus there is on building sort of custom tooling for us. So trying to see what the competitors are doing. There are ways to scrape them and find out. Trying to see what's happening in AI overviews, sort of going beyond, some of the tools that are currently available. I'm not saying they're bad, but if you can build a custom solution, then that can be quite helpful. So yeah, between sort of content, web pages, a bit of management, and checking SEMrush, I'd say that's the vast majority of what my days look like. Of course, sometimes I get to do stuff like this too.
Of course. Well, sounds like a pretty full day. I'm glad that you took some time out of it to speak to us, Oleg. To stay on that for a second on content, right? Because obviously you have that background and a lot of knowledge on that. Speaking of consumption, there's a flood of content out there. How do you stay focused and keep learning? Are there certain places, people, or routines you turn to for, let's say, inspiration or staying ahead?
Yeah, there's actually a newsletter that I really like from Rank. Uh, so I find the content that they have is actually quite valuable. Uh, it mainly focuses on sort of AI and SEO trends. Um, it's quite useful. It's quite a good summary. Of course, I do browse LinkedIn. I think their algorithm has changed recently to sort of reflect your existing interests. So I find that the content that now gets served on the homepage is actually quite useful. Yes, I mean, occasionally I'll go to conferences as well. So Brighton SEO is a big one. It's coming up soon. So really looking forward to that as well. And then, of course, yeah, just trying to talk to as many people within the industry as possible, because some things that people do that work really well, they're not necessarily going to publish it, or at the very least, not very quickly. So trying to go straight to the source is quite helpful sometimes.
That's good. I mean, that's one of the main things really that just connected with people. Even having a mentor personally, I think it's one of those things that really help. It doesn't have to be someone that is in your same area necessarily, which of course would help. But these days with Zoom calls and even online summits and conferences, it's even easier to find someone that you can rely on. Say, uh, just ask a few questions. But that's great to know. And what was the newsletter name again? Sorry.
Rank.
Hyper rank. Got it. Okay, that's really good. Now we're going into the back half of our podcast episode here, Oleg. What we like to do at the end is just to close with a rapid fire segment, and it's just a few questions really to keep things light and engaging. We have a question about, books or content you consume. You have a question about a magic wand. Don't want to spoil it for you or anyone else, but would you be ready for it?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. So when it comes to content, again, how do you prefer consuming it? Is it reading, watching, or listening to something?
I'd say watching.
Watching? Okay. So what's the latest piece of content you watched? It could be a YouTube video, it could be a course, it could be a short even that you picked up, and was there anything that really stuck with you in it?
Oof, not going to talk about the shorts that I consume. That's a whole other situation. um, Actually, recently I got into this podcast about true crime, which sounds kind of basic, but it is also recorded. I tend to game and just have it on in the background. It's called Casual Criminalist, if anyone's interested. It is on YouTube.
Okay.
So I just have it on in the background and sort of game in the foreground. It's a good way to unwind, I guess.
No, of course, yeah. And it doesn't, of course, it doesn't have to be related to marketing or anything like that. I like that you mentioned something that you do on your free time, let's say. So maybe, someone out there will pick it up and also enjoy it. Um, if you had a magic wand, Oleg, and you could fix one frustrating thing in your life with tech, maybe related to marketing, to your job, what would you pick?
Oof. Let's say attribution. So this is related to my job, naturally, but yeah, we're just thinking about this in the office right now. And actually, if we had perfect data, so we just had like a perfect one-to-one, like this is where the user came from, this is what they did, that would be ideal. Unfortunately, we don't have that. That's why we have a lot of marketers and analysts. So that kind of works out.
I guess that we still keeping people employed, which is good, of course. We want more teammates, and that help us. Um, okay, final question: if you could go back and give your past self a quick pep talk, let's say at the start of your career, what advice would you give yourself?
Ooh, that is a difficult one. I'd say probably never stop learning and don't assume that your career might end up in a certain place just because that's where it is right now. So there's always time to pivot. There's always time to learn new tools and sort of adapt to your environment. So just trying to be open-minded about it. I think that's pretty valuable. I mean, especially right now when things are evolving quite quick.
Absolutely. Love that message. And Oleg, I want to thank you a lot for being on the show with us today. Also, I want to give you the last word. If someone forgets everything about the interview today, what is the one thing that you should remember about the work you guys are doing?
Well, when the company started back in 2020, electric cars seemed like a bit of a myth. You get your Nissan Leaf with maybe 80 miles of range. But today, electric cars are just cars. And we hope to keep accelerating that transition further. We'll get to 2030 and then to 2050 and beyond. And, by the time we're old and gray, we'll look back at it, look back at petrol and diesel cars and think, wow, back in those days, that was crazy. So, yeah, let's keep moving forward. Let's keep the electric transition going, and hopefully we can do some good work in this space.
Amazing. Love it. And if someone wants to check you guys out, see what you're all about, maybe even sign up to the initiative as a company or as an employee to propose to their employer, how can they do it? Where can they go?
So the easiest way to do that is to go to the website. So that'll be www.electriccarscheme.com. And then, yeah, you can read all about the scheme from there. Check out our blog. And yeah, if you're an employer, sign up to the scheme. And if you're an employee, then you can find out some information to convince your employer.
Amazing. What a way to close. Okay, Oleg, again, love the conversation, love the insights from you. Again, maybe we do this again sometime soon, maybe before the year ends. If not, it will be the next one. But thanks for sharing the insights again, and wish you a wonderful day.
Thanks, Rick.
All right. Bye, everyone.